Good morning, students. Today, we're going to speak about the ways of interpreting in mass media. Today, with you, I am Usmonova. You know that the ways of interpreting, it's the most important in mass media, analyzing the topic or any kind of materials in mass media. And you know that to understand something, to analyze something, to react to the news, or to report something, it is the process of interpreting. You know that today we are going to speak about what's the interpretation of mass media, the four functions of mass communication. The third plan of today's lesson is news interpretation. The last is about learning news. Welcome to today's lesson, dear students. You know, when we talk about interpretation, you can face to some question. What's the interpretation in mass media? Interpretation is a function of mass media that provides a context for new information and commentary about its significance and meaning. Traditionally, newspapers' editorial and commentary sections reserving news pages for supposedly neutral information. It is about short information on interpretation. And the next is about four functions of mass media or mass communication. They are surveillance or correlation. The third one is cultural and transmission, entertainment. All of these processes are the main function of mass media interpretation. And we can call the news interpretation and the main things of mass media, main items of mass media. When we watch TV, when we learn something new from TV, or when we read newspaper, when we listen to broadcast, we can face some question how people interpret the news they consume and what that means for journalistic practice. In this case, you can face some two kind of or many kinds of approach. For example, if you have some newspaper, you can react it not as the same who are your friends. For example, in your mind, you can question what is reality. Reality, it is fact, it is evidence. Reality can be so complex that equally valid observations from different perspectives can appear to be contradictory. Pay attention to the picture. There are two kind of reality. There are two kind of interpretation. There are two kind of analyzing on evidence. You know, someone or some people consider three sticks as the four sticks. Some people consider four sticks as the three sticks. It is some reaction of human being to reality. What about the next? Next is about how is reality created. You know, reality, it is about real things. It is about human being existence. How can people view the same media messages and have different interpretation? You can discover, you can look for these questions or some answer for this question from life. When we learn something, when we watch something, when we, for example, get some information from mass media, in our mind, in our brain, there are four kind of steps or stages. We can call it as a four steps of learning process. How do we learn? The first step is about observation. The second is environment. The third is connection or connections. In some cases, you can call it schema or schema construction. The fourth, the last, it's about learning things, changing to, for example, concepts. It is about reinforcement. Okay, what is a schema or a cognitive schematic construction or structure? What do you think? In this case, when learning new information, our brains categorize what we are learning to store it. To do this, the new information connects to existing knowledge, experience, and etc. to help us understand and process new information. We can address to schematic or cognitive schematic construction or structure. One piece of existing knowledge is known as schema, and the entire map of existing knowledge in our brain is known as schematic structure. And what about, for example, it's a general information. What about the individual schema? What about your own brain schema, your own background knowledge? It is in your brain, it is in your learning process, is characterized as a clustering branch. For example, there are so many nodes about knowledge, or there are so many links about connecting with each other. And pay attention to the next social construction of reality. It is a reality created by society by coming to a mutual agreement of what something means. There are two kinds of agreements or approach. The first question is about, can you think of symbols in our society that hold a shared meaning or that are socially constructed? The second is, can you think of ideas in our society that hold a shared meaning or that are socially constructed? Pay attention, both of them are socially constructed, but there are two kinds of approach. The first is about think of symbols, or the second is about ideas. And pay attention to the social construct of reality. It is can be determined what these, for example, process and pictures mean. So there is common understanding, even it is as it that understanding is subjective, at times inaccurate. Pay attention in interpreting or the process of mass media materials or interpreting or of news. There are two kinds of approach. The first is subjectivity and the second is objectivity. Both of them are belong to writer. Both of them are belong to interpreter. In this case, there should be the main things of reality. The main rule of reality is the main approach of mass media. The material of mass media should be objective, not so subjective, because everything should be according to evidence, not only, for example, a personal thoughts or personal experience, personal skills. It should be according to some object, evidence, fact, or given things. And pay attention to the learning process. There should be, for example, some mass media material. If if the author gives words for learning, for teaching to audience, firstly, pay attention to the memory process. You can hear, you can listen something, and sensory, or you can watch something. In this case, you can select all information. You can organize your schema. And in this case, there are two kind of things are very significant. They are sounds. It is related to the verbal process. The second is images. It is about illustration, fact, evidence. And they are considered as an organization of schema in your brain. And pay attention to the working process. The first process is about verbal model. The second is pictorial model. It is about integration of interpretation. The last process, last reinforcement stage is about long-term is concepted in your brain. And dear students, who is right in this case? Is it, for example, are there 3 sticks or are there 4 sticks? In this case, it will be not so objectivity. In this case, we can address to subjectivity, because two kind of approach belong to two persons. Reality can be so complex that equally valid observations from different perspectives can appear to be contradictory. And just we will have some sample for investigating today's topic. Pay attention to this shirt. It is about shirt which is belong to Kent University's students' uniform. Now, take a minute and jot down any thoughts you have on this shirt. Okay, I'll give you a time for thinking over about this uniform. It can be symbolized by Kent University's uniform, or if you watch this, if you see these symbols or this shirt, you know that the owner of this shirt can be belong to Kent University. Pay attention to the next sample. What about this? What about this quotation? The last bullet fired at the Kent State students. It is as a gun. It is as some process of learning. And urban outfitters, Kent State University. Does the editor Carton change interpretation of a shirt? The understanding of this editorial cartoon relies on prior knowledge and shared reality for true comprehension. And just while learning the process of interpretation, you know, as we're analyzing the t-shirt and the next sample, we processed so many processes. For example, there can be about presenting these two samples, three process of mass media, media processing and effect model. Pay attention to the first model. It is a weak media effect. The first process, reject media message due to cognitive dissonance. In this, disregard media message. You can not have any kind of reaction on statement of mass media or given things, given materials of mass media. The second process is about limited media effect. Pay attention, compare them. The first is weak media, the second is limited media effect. Distort media message to reinforce prior belief and connect to existing schemas. holding working memory, waiting for stronger reinforcement. Pay attention to the first model. First model, it is about introducing the material of mass media. The second is to compare the material with your knowledge which has existed in your brain. But what about the third model? It is strong media effect. It is progress. A progress media message reinforces prior belief, connects to existing schemas, store long-term memory. In this case, there are two kinds of approach about store. Store media message in long-term memory, add to existing schema to beliefs. The next, it is input media message. The media aid in social construction of reality. That construction ultimately frames our schemas and worldview. And you can face some discussion question. Part of the reason people in different nations tend to perceive the same situation so differently is that the reality they construct in response to news is so different. Why is this like this case? Why is this the case? Why can people have different responses on reality? Why they have perceptions to the same news and information? Does this concept change or potential to change how people view the media? It is about how can react them, how can consume them, and pay attention to the next case. The specific psychological barriers to effective information dissemination must be considered and overcome. People often distort incoming information to be consistent with prior attitudes, making change less likely. Why should journalists keep this in mind when producing content? There should be some psychological barriers. Why it's necessary? What do you think? Why is it so main significant things in mass media? Because persuasive approach in mass media, it is the long term. It is a reinforcement of interpretation. Okay, in your own words, summarize why people can interpret the same news story differently because they have so different schema construction. And just pay attention to the news, types of news. While interpreting the mass media news, you can face so many types of news. They are rumors, or fake news, innuendos, gossips. Maybe they serve for making PR for celebrities, but it can be not near to reality. It can be near to making PR. Okay, dear students, today our lesson is about this interpreting process of the news. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye. See you.